folks, and welcome to the Square D, the Jack the Ripper of GAA Analytics. My name is Conor Galvin, your host for the show, and I'm joined as ever by the professor, the king himself, and founder of GAA Pro Stats, Mr. Stephen O'Mara. Stephen, how's you cutting?
Not bad at all, not bad at all. Flat out with the football, so can't complain.
That's the way to have you for a change. We're doing this in daylight hours. Things are definitely looking up. We're coming off an adrenaline-packed weekend. The gunfight at the OK Corral down in Salt Hill. Boy, Jesus, there was some bullets flying everywhere down there. We're going to get our teeth into that. We said goodbye to a few teams. The Kildare lads, Roscommon, Donegal are packed off now for the summer holidays, no doubt. Most will be in Boston and Chicago and places like that. But we still have plenty of runners and riders still standing. Without further ado, right, we're going to fly into this. This show is dedicated now to Galway and Mayo. This was a real classic. Now, it was error-ridden classic, but nonetheless, this was absolutely fantastic stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, look, it was certainly a less cagey affair than I thought maybe Galway would make it. Maybe Mayo force it that way, and we'll look at some intriguing stats on that. But yeah, look, it was more of a footballing spectacle than maybe some of the games in Connacht would have been this year. I put up stats showing the Connacht 3 to 4 best defences in Championship have been Connacht, and not really the best offences, not in the Championship so much as the league. So yeah, a great game. I suppose looking at the overview, really, and I suppose the key thing to start with was, if I was to do a 3-minute show, it would start with the fact that, notwithstanding the win, that we look at the intricate details here. All things being equal, Galway should have won. Of an expected score here, Galway 16.4, Mayo 12.2. So all things being equal, and I suppose just that we might go on to it later on. Look, I think 2 of Galway's goal chances were, Damo probably Comer shouldn't have shot maybe on that sort of tap one over the bar. Joyce alluded to it in an interview. But certainly Matthew Tierney had a good 35% goal chance, maybe a 40%er. Missed a couple of frees they'd normally put over, even though they scored one hard one. So, look, we've got to give the context in everything we say here. All things being equal, Galway should have won the game. And we look at the first half here, 8-3 score at half-time. Expect to score 9.6 to 5.1. Now, big caveat, I don't currently have win factored into expected score. It's distance by pressure. It doesn't factor in the win. So notably, you'll see there Mayo's expected score into the win 5.1 when they actually scored 3, and Galway are above expected score with the win. Second half, again, we'll see Galway's expected score 6.8 as opposed to the 4 they got. Again, Mayo shot above expected score with the win. So they're all factors. But even within that context, we'll see there's Galway's shots in the first half. Probably should have scored a bit more off what they did. A couple of close-in misses there. And there's Mayo shots in the first half, again, to give that context. There's a lot of pressure on those. There's 4 reds to the left. There was significant pressure on...
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify, when you're talking about wind, right, all of those are from the D and beyond, your 20-metre line inwards. Like McLaughlin, the 2 McLaughlins shot 2 horrific wides. Jason Doherty guilty of another. I don't think their shot selection they weren't exactly ballooning the ball from 45 yards out, Mayo, were they? Like, there was a few.
No, but again, you don't know Salt Hill like I know Salt Hill. Like, it's there's a big win there, and there was choices for shots from 35 yards from some really good players, and they weren't chosen. So I think we've got to give that context. But again, what I will say is that a lot of those shots were under significant pressure. Notwithstanding the wind. So there's all that involved, But look, we look again, there's that's Mayo shots in the second half. Obviously, you can see the significance of the wind there. Obviously, some cracking shots. There's one just out of picture there, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, that's Killian O'Connor there on the right. Again, there's Galway shots in the second half, and you can see there a couple of frees that in a normal day they'd score. So that expected score, I do have to give that caveat. But again, if we go back to the overall, I suppose the intriguing factor was to summarize the game again in my 3 minutes, and I'll get this whole game stats up again. Where it was intriguing, I suppose, was the fact that ultimately, right, expected score 16.4 to 12.2, and you can literally take the Tierney's goal chances, the Galway goal chance versus the Mayo goal chance, albeit Mayo's was a slightly better chance under less pressure. That alone gets you closer to your expected score if they flip or if both score or both miss. But what's intriguing here is expected score per 10 phases for both teams is 4.3. So essentially, in terms of raw football, all things being equal, it was two massively evenly matched teams. The championship average has been 4.4 points per 10 phases. So in raw terms, bang on even. But the key there, which we'll come on to now, is that obviously Galway's expected score was 4.3 per 10 phases. Their actual score was 3.2. Mayo's expected score.
Mayo, lest we forget, Mayo and Cork the last time, Mayo were running at a 3.2 expected score per 10 phases in the Cork game.
And again,
so
look,
this is a big uplift here.
Well, again, the Cork game was an outlier. Again, it's that maybe that Kevin Walsh Mayo dynamic, but that was an outlier in Mayo's offensive figures all year, to be fair. Well, it wasn't. They weren't brilliant against Roscommon either in the championship. But look, it's an improvement, and we'll look at the reasons why. But the key thing of this figure is total phases. Galway 38, Mayo 28. If you told me that you'd have 38 phases versus 28 phases, I'd say there'll only be one winner here. So Galway, as we're about to see, did do a stitch-up job on Mayo's kickouts. Mayo didn't do vice versa. With all that, it was a serious operation for Mayo to win, though it is factored in that Galway shot particularly badly on the day. Notably, a lot of Galway Mayo games going back sort of when I was involved with Galway, the figures were actually the opposite. Galway won, but Mayo had the higher expected score. So maybe, what goes around comes around, as they say.
Yeah. Well, you're going to look as well. I mean, look at early doors in this match. I mean, Mayo settled bloody well the first 10 minutes. Looked like they had a better handle on the blanket defence. And then Galway took over.
Yeah. And I suppose, look, I pointed out last week, Connor, against Cork, and I think it's a key. I think it's something Galway didn't do against Armagh. We look at that briefly. Ultimately, that's why Galway aren't in the quarterfinals with the Armagh game, I would say, more than the Mayo game. Notwithstanding the misfortune of Westmeath, Pippin, Tyrone. But yeah, look, the blanket defence early on, it looked all Mayo, because you saw that shot map, how close Mayo were getting in. Mayo had 4 shots from inside 21 yards in the opening stage. They got shots on 4 of the 5. But what I thought they lacked last week against Cork was they were very linear. They'd bring the ball down the channel, bring it across, 30 yards and bring it back. It looks to me like the homework was done more here. You see here, Killian O'Connor or Dermot O'Connor brings the ball back out just as he crosses the 45. We'll see ball shifted across. We've talked about this. You Jack Carney and and the 2 key players here. Carney might make spectacular plays, but he's got it all up here. But probably the jewel in the pack, and this ties in with 2 things. I said last week, they've got to bring the ball down towards the 21. Get your real good ball players that can bring it in there, suck in bodies and take it back out. I suppose I would have said on Friday, Aidan O'Shea was maybe the only man that really had the skill set to do that under pressure. And I said it all year, we won't know until the knockout stages happen. Kevin McLaughlin, master stroke, one of the most underrated footballers over the last 10, 12 years. For me, has almost everything, but has it up here. He sucks into Galway men. Now, you see the hand up, and I take the hand up as saying, now, lads, don't bring it back across the field. This is the game plan. This is Stephen Cowell, one of the smart boys again. A few very direct Mayo boys maybe need that bit more instruction from the senior players or the more tactically sound players. Hand up means get the bloody thing across the far side of the field. If I was to hazard a guess, all of a sudden, now they don't get a man-on-man. You can see Sean Kelly is still sweeping, but if the ball comes across, you'll see again, Dermot O'Connor cuts the line. We talked about the cut the line being too predictable when Cork were already set last week, but this week they've stretched them first. Now you get the ball to Tommy Conroy, and now he's coming in off the shoulder on the loop, takes on Sean Kelly, which we'll look at the end. Would he go by Sean Kelly like that in the normal run of the things? I'm not sure he would, albeit if anyone's going by Sean Kelly, it probably is Tommy Conroy. And I suppose that was a Tommy Conroy I saw playing Freshers football 4 years ago. As the nickname goes, he'd probably have gone for the goal, but maybe the experience of intercounty senior football has knocked a few of those, knocked the joys of spring out of him, and he tapped the ball over the bar.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, it's an amazing thing. I mean, we've espoused the virtues of this Galway team all through the year, particularly from the league. I mean, particularly defensively. You know, from the goalkeepers, Conor Gleeson, Bernie Power, you're looking at Sean Kelly, who's outstanding, John Daly. Dylan McHugh was one particular player we flagged early doors as a linchpin in the Galway defence. Yesterday, what happened?
Well, look, I suppose it only dawned on me last week. I'm watching so much football, you know, I'm not engrossed in one particular team. It only dawned on me last night. Sean Kelly wasn't sweeping for Galway all year. Who was? And then it dawned on me, it's been John Daly and Dylan McHugh. And we did a piece on Galway's phenomenal defending. When I had the stats that Galway were the outlier defensively this year by a long shot, we did a piece, but we did earmark that the brains behind the operation were Dylan McHugh and John Daly. And I suppose a lot of talk about various injuries in Galway were hit hard. You know, Kelly wasn't fully fit. Comer had to go off. I think the biggest one that slipped under the radar is Dylan McHugh. And we look here and it ties in with the previous piece. Again, who's the brains behind the operation on the Mayo setup? It's Kevin McLaughlin. This piece probably illustrates two things. Right, so there's a blanket defence here in place. Keep an eye on Kevin McLaughlin on the arrow. And, you know, first of our 6 or 7 marquee names, Antoine Griezmann, who plays between the lines in soccer, but there's a lot more space for it in soccer. You're generally not allowed that in Gaelic football, but there's 2 points here. A, the lack of Dylan McHugh for Galway, who I think has been the main sweeper, and it's always been him or Daly or both. And they've, as we saw previously, manipulated brilliantly. Watch Kevin McLaughlin here on the arrow. We can see Peter Cook is pointing, and I say that respectfully. Good defenses point and communicate. But as the ball comes across again, there's a mix-up between Marr and Cook as to who takes who. They both go the same way, which, you know, isn't good. Whereas Kevin McLaughlin, all of this, he's sneaking into the space between the lines, gets a handy pop pass in between the lines, way too easy. I think brilliant by McLaughlin again. That's 2 scores there. He's key in, even if one is 7, 8 touches back from the score. I think he's the key player in it, apart from Conroy. But here he is, and could have, you know, slips in. I think it's a Cohen, could have been a goal, but, you know, probably was right to put it over the bar. But then it illustrates brilliant. Kevin McLaughlin sprung. Don't need to be dogging him all year. 4 games. They would have thought 3 that we have to win an All-Ireland. He comes in, he starts in one of them. But equally, I think if Dylan McHugh was there, we'll see it as we go on. If Dylan McHugh was there, I don't think that score goes in as easily. I think he's organising that better. And if John Daly was free, which he wasn't, I don't think it would have happened either. But the point is, one of those is tied up somewhere. The other one is calling the shots. And we take one out, all of a sudden, it's not the same defensive operation as well schooled as it clearly was from Cian O'Neill.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this game, right? I mean, particularly the midfield battle. I mean, like yesterday, McDade's, Peter Cooks, Conroy, Johnny Maher, Johnny Heaney, a lot of the Galway boys scavenged. They were like wild dingoes on the prairie. Won a lot of dirty ball, hands-on ball, but they could not. I mean, the Galway supporters today must be sick, right? They could not convert them. Once they ran into the blanket defences, they drowned, right? Despite all the time. Why was that? How did this golden generation of Galway footballers, they got rattled on the go, but nonetheless, they still time to reassert themselves, and they didn't. They drowned.
Yeah, look, I think the key thing to point out here, we're going to look at some really intriguing stats here in a second, but I suppose what ultimately changed the game was the fact that Galway absolutely did a job on the Mayo kickout. Now, obviously, that's easier when you've got a big wind. But you see Galway's kickouts there in the first half, and you know, they've got 5 out of 6 hands on ball, albeit 3 were to the melting pot. But you know, that's a serious kick out map there. That's what Galway did to Mayo. And there's 2 heads overlapping over there at the 45. It looked less extreme than it is. So there was an absolute job done on the kickouts, which is what gave Galway that impetus and that lead, because ultimately on a phase per phase play, and you'll see it here, just the dynamics of it. We've looked at it more in depth already, not just Galway, but a few. But Galway probably as aggressive as there is, and you know, look, there is a lot in between this, but look, ultimately they just flooded. There's 5 bodies in there. There's 3. There's one just out of picture. That's on the 9th minute here, the 20th minute again. There's just Galway bodies absolutely everywhere. There's one on the arrow out of picture. So that's what gave Galway the springboard. But what we're gonna see here, and this is absolutely intriguing. If you told me I'd be looking at these figures on Friday, I wouldn't believe. So we've a new table here. I had the programmer burning the midnight oil. He promised me a table for this weekend, and at about 12:15 today, he delivered for me.
I'd say he loves you.
He loves me. I'd say he loves me just as much as you do. Promising you 1:15, and predictably being slightly off the 1:15. But here we are. Now, this is a new table I've put in. Now, I would have done this sort of stuff manually previously. This is now automated in the software. And if you had told me this on Friday, if you told me that this would be a game of blanket defences and Mayo would come out of it on top, I wouldn't believe you. But look at this. You've got Galway now. This account, actually, this doesn't include the last phase. It would be disingenuous when Mayo were letting Galway have a point. Every phase where one team has crossed the line has crossed. So you have every phase bar 2 in the game in this. Galway have faced 17 blanket defences and 7 +1. By +1, there's a sweeper, but not large bodies back. Blanket is a sweeper and large bodies back. On the out-and-out blanket defences, Galway have scored 4 out of 17. Turned over on 9, shot wide on 4. Now that bad day of shooting, with, you know, in another day I'll have expected score on this. It'll be too late for the show. Probably the expected score is higher than that, 24% of the blankets and 0% of the +1s. But ultimately, it's very, very low. And what we actually see here is Galway ultimately, bar battering Mayo on the kick out, absolutely, you know, they were done. Because if you look, they've got man-on-man 9 times and they've scored 4 out of those 9. They've got an overlap 4 times and scored 3 out of those 4. So we're into our kind of money ball figures here, really breaking down the detail of the game.
Intriguing.
And ultimately, Galway have scored, when Mayo had a sweeper in place, Galway scored 4 points from 24 phases. And that's an absolute doing on Galway from the Mayo defence.
But your headline figures there, like, I mean, you know, Galway facing the blanket 17 times, got 4 points. Mayo faced it 19 times, got 1-7.
Yeah.
Now, this is the same Galway blanket that annihilated the Rossies.
Yeah.
They actually conceded a kick out.
Yeah.
Kept them down, right? And Mayo got out and picked them apart. How?
Well, look, I suppose before I move on to how, I suppose we've looked at some of it there already. It is worth noting, if I was looking at this without knowing the context of the teams, what would concern you maybe from a Mayo point of view is the fact that Galway did get 9 man-on-mans and 4 with an overlap. That's 13 compared to Mayo actually only got 1 man-on-man and 2 with the overlap. So that's A, accounted for by the doing they got in the kickouts in the first half. B, that is how Mayo play. They press you high up the field. Yeah. I suppose the implied odds, to use a poker term, is that they hope that they're good enough to turn you over and get you on the break. That's maybe a concern for Mayo. You know, that the Dubs coming next week, obviously. But I suppose in terms of the forensics of it, and sorry, just to break it down again, there's Galway in the first half. You know, Mayo scored 3 out of 12 into that blanket defence, all for the first 4 phases actually in the first half. Whereas, you know, 6 of Galway's 8 points in the first half still came from a man-on-man or an overlap, mostly off kickouts. They scored 2 out of 7 into the blanket defence with the wind. Second half, you can see it there. Galway scored 2 out of 10. And that's ultimately probably what did for them, whereas Mayo scored 1-4 from 7. And I suppose we look again, and this goes back, and it's similar to that first play, and this is key. And this was clearly worked on during the week, because this is what Mayo didn't do against Cork. You'll see here, they have won a kick out, but Aidan O'Shea goes backwards. Ball comes across, and I suppose Oma McLaughlin, and this is key, and you're going to see again the key man in this again. Now, to give Oma McLaughlin his dues, it's hard to see, but he shapes up, he throws the shapes as though he's got to shoot. And why does he do that? Probably the best piece of offensive advice I ever got. Actually, I procured. It wasn't given to me. It was found. That's a funny story for 10 years' time. Be the assister. And Kevin McLaughlin here, if you can forgive my manner, my grammar, B's the assister. Because he throws the shape as though he's got to shoot. You can kind of have work out there that he throws the shape. What does it do? It sucks more bodies in. And here we have a double of Ciarán Kilkenny and Galway of Matthew Tierney. Who do Mayo have? Kevin McLaughlin. What does he do? He knows he's not taking on Sean Fitzgerald, but he throws the shapes as though he is. What does it do? It sucks in extra Galway bodies. Okay, so you've got Johnny Heaney's come across. Sean Kelly's in as a sweeper. I think it might be Johnny Heaney's come across. Killian McDade is going to come out to the front of there. They've sucked 3 men in. Again, you ask me, who's the key man on this goal? It's not the full-back who comes up and gets it, though brilliantly as he does. But this is the same goal they got against Tyrone twice. Ball comes across. Now what have you got? Killian McDade is now in dead space. These are all man-and-mans across the way. And there's a few subtle details. We're going to see Mayo full-back, Lames, Connor, goal scorer.
David McBride.
Yeah, that Brian comes up. And we can see where it's going. But the issue, as you can see here, is by Owen McLaughlin going down, throwing the shape to hit the shot, by Kevin McLaughlin throwing the shape, coming into contact, bringing it out, that's created this 4v3 on the far side. Now, maybe from a Galway point of view, I would say you have 4 reasonable defenders there. For 4 top-class offensive players here, they're all better than average defenders. I think it's Killian McDade, John Mars, an okay defender. Paul Conroy is a good defender for a brilliant offensive midfielder. And forget who's on the far side. But again, I think if Dylan McHugh or John Daly are at the front of this arc, they're going to hold that line. They're going to see the 2v1 coming. They're going to hold that line. But again, because you don't have any born-bred defender here at the front of the arc, they're all, you have 2 of the best offensive players in the country.
Good knowledge that is.
Finish the point. Sorry?
Good knowledge that is, right? One thing was slightly overlooked is David McBride's hand pass, 20-meter hand pass.
Well, let's look at that. Yeah, again, absolutely. Let's look at that hand pass. But the point I'm making is...
This is serious.
It is top level. But the point I'm making, once you recognize, for me, I'm saying this all year, but everyone, Galway's done this really well. But again, you can do all the coaching you want, but you take out your fulcrum defenders. And John Daly, actually, I haven't marked it, but you can see him in here on the arrow. He's not actually a sweeper there. He's being John Daly, an exceptional defender. He's cheating. He's 30 yards off his man. This guy out here, it's actually Peter Cook is out here, I remember now. Again, a very good defender for a midfielder, but not a defensive fulcrum. Cookie is actually looking at that Mayo man on the shadow you can just see on the edge of the picture. So John Daly is really a sweeper there. And the point that all I'm saying is...
We have 3-on-2 inside.
They've got to hold this keeper line that they're going to be able to respect the 2v1, but they actually step out because, again, you don't have a defensive fulcrum. And you can coach that all you want, but you've no John Daly, you've no Dylan McHugh at the front of the arc, and there's no one just saying, we've got to get back. And Conroy was never going to stop McBride. Now, here we are. Talk to me about the hand pass.
Boom.
Yeah, it's a spot-on hand pass. And again, there's a game.
He is flying.
There's a game that I've said it before. There's a game we played out of Tinner Island. The game was a marquee game for me. Stephen Rochford did a session for me when I coached Centralstown a few years ago. One of the games, what we call the Mayo game, that creates this kind of play. One of his rules, which I sometimes play and sometimes don't play, hand passes can't bounce. And you can see the value of that here, because even in county football, one of the big things is the lazy hand pass. And if you give a lazy hand pass here, it allows Galway to defend it, but it is got a good spot. Not one of my notes here, it's bang on. And again, it's been received by one of the best footballers in Ireland. Obviously, the question we'll come to again at the end it will be unfair to say that Sean Kelly is off the pace here, because the angle at which McBrien comes in, you can see Kelly's angles are all wrong, but they kind of have to be to make up for the initial break. But I still don't think Sean Kelly gets beaten for this much pace on a normal scenario. He's come from there. You can see the body angle isn't set to he has to turn 180 degrees back off himself. McBrien has full momentum. Question mark, would you go by Kelly as easily normally? I don't know. But the play was set up for that to happen. But ultimately, that's a big change from Mayo from last week compared to this week, the way that they're playing like that. So that's from the Mayo point of view. From the Galway point of view, I suppose there's a couple of points. Firstly, and it is kind of my biggest sit on the fence, because it'd be easy to come out now and have a go at Joyce and at how Galway were set up. The missus came in at half time, 8-3 to Galway. So, she moved to Ireland first when Galway were about to hit the Ireland semi-final in 18. I was involved, so she started with de facto Galway and Donegal and maybe a bit of Dublin supporter. She says 8-3 for Galway. It was only 2 weeks ago I was explaining to her what's a 5-point win. I said, no, but there's a 5-point win. Then you're kind of asking, would you be happier going in as Mayo or Galway with 5 points? Probably a par, I would say. Still question marks about Ian Burke not starting. The way Galway went head first into the Armagh fence.
Ian Burke was anonymous. Ian Burke was anonymous.
Well, I'm going to come on to why. If I was Ian Burke, I'd be very frustrated, and I'll tell you why. Galway did everything you shouldn't do, trying to break down the Armagh blanket defence, zonal defence. It's 2 weeks in a row Galway have failed thoroughly to break down a zonal defence. Armagh's, I would have said, was the best. Well, hang on.
Players. Surely to God, right? Now, understand Joyce's thinking. Sometimes you must look at things and say, listen, lads, you are good enough. Just go out there and win the match. Just win it. Just go. Go out.
I think that's what
players. Do good players not just fought and fix out there?
Nah, it's not as simple as that. I think that was the Joyce philosophy in 20 and 21, which was a car crash. And I think they've, dose of reality kicked in, and King O'Neill was brought in, and a bit more modern tactics. I don't think that's the case at all, Conor. No, I think Galway have the players, but the point I would make is Armagh. I do think there was a lack of analysis done on how Armagh's defence is set up. I would have seen Armagh's defence evolve from what I would have said was the best defence in the country last year. A particular Dublin player, someone I know was chatting to, said that Armagh are the best set-up team in Ireland. I won't say who, obviously, but that came from a multiple All-Ireland winner with Dublin. I think as it's evolved, teams have maybe worked out, and maybe they're having an old glance here that you've got to bring it down wide against Armagh. It's nearly modern football in general. It's what we've just shown Mayo do, but especially against Armagh, you've got to bring it down wide, get your Aidan O'Shea's, your Paddy McBrearty's, your Paul Mannion's, your Kevin McLaughlin's, who can bring it down there, take it back out, and stretch the far. Galway never tried that against Armagh. And Ian Burke, what I'd always said to Donegal boys is, do not bring the ball into the central channel against Armagh unless you have them massively stretched. Ian Burke operates in that central channel. So the game was never set up for him. We see here again, here we are, we look at those really poor Galway figures on breaking the blanket defence. Ian Burke operates around the tip of the D. But look at how deep, with that wind, you can't shoot from 37, 38 yards. Normally, Conroy would be throwing arrows from here, maybe John Marr, maybe John Daly, Matthew Tierney. It's so deep. And they can with the wind. Now, granted, they only scored 2 from 7, but probably an expected score of 3 or 4 from 7 into the blanket defence in the first half. Where does Ian Burke operate from? There's just nowhere to operate inside there. Ball comes out to Sean Kelly. Now, this has nothing to do with his ankle, which we'll discuss at the end. There's just Kelly makes those line breaks all the time. The space just isn't there. I will also say, and it's the second time, and Mayo man-mark Lee Keegan man-mark Kieran Kilkenny in 2017 All-Ireland final. Who is Galway's Kieran Kilkenny? Matthew Tierney. He's a string puller. Now, listen, he still scored 2 points in a couple of minutes in the first half. I thought was fouled by Owen McLaughlin for a third. He gave an assist we look at he had a goal chance, a 1-on-1 goal chance. So if I was a man marker and my man got 2 points and missed a goal chance, I wouldn't be happy. But saying that, you still didn't have Tierney pulling the strings the way Kilkenny would pull the strings for Dublin. So I think between Burke not playing the first half, I could say it was an error, but 5 points at half time was probably a par with that win. That was a 5. I literally explained to my wife what a 5-point win is. And it was that. So there's all that. And Tierney being man marked, couldn't control it. Burke not in the team in the first half. Didn't have space to operate in the second half. And Comer, I always have said it, people love Comer full forward. For me, when you can't break a blanket defence, you get Comer out to 11 on the loop, give and go, and he just batters through everybody. Scored and set up 3 outrageous points when Galway were struggling against Roscommon in the Connacht final in 18. So all those options weren't there, but that's not to take away from the fact
Galway
that
Galway's
defended very
well.
well.
Team, right? Obviously, Matty Rowan was dropped from midfield. Conor Loftus was dropped as well. Doherty in, McLaughlin in. So even if they planned for the eventualities, in actual fact, when Mayo actually dropped in Jason Doherty and Kevin McLaughlin, they were up against a completely different mold than perhaps what they planned for.
Yeah, and it was. Look, you have to give credit where it's due. It was, the tactical master. It was big day tactical master strokes. And look, there's every chance Mayo were sitting there all year thinking, well, look, we've got Kevin McLaughlin. What age is Kevin McLaughlin? I'm hazarding a complete guess here at 33 or 34, maybe.
Yeah, it's himself and Doherty in around 33, 30,
You don't need to dog him all year, but if I was calculating all of this, as I said previously, would I have taken the provincial championship seriously? I don't know. Would I have? We still don't know until next week. We'll discuss it at the end briefly. We still don't know until next week how significant play in this game is compared to being rested up for a week. Ultimately, if I was looking at a game, I'd have been saying, if I was looking at the season as a whole, I'd have been saying, well, don't really need 1 or 2 of these boys till the first knockout game. There's only 3 or 4 of them, hopefully 3. They brought him in. So Galway did face a completely different prospect. They wouldn't have planned for Kevin McLaughlin, whereas Mayo planned for Matthew Tierney. Obviously, there is a misfortune from Galway's point of view that Sean Kelly, was carrying an injury. Damien Cohen went off at half-time. Dylan McHugh got injured. That is, if you're to pick 5 Galway players, if you're Mayo, you'd like to put a line through, he can't play. You are probably putting 3 of them there. And maybe, as hindsight shows, maybe Dylan McHugh at the top of that list.
Yeah, Comer's injury was very unusual. Usually a guy, unless he's kind of carted off the pitch in play, he goes in at half-time, hamstrings tight. They said if he went back out, it would have torn. But who knows? Ultimately, it's kill or be killed, right? You lose, you die. Surely to God, they should have dragged him out there and say, see how you get on. If you blow up, you blow up.
Yeah.
Send him in. At least he's going to take a man marker wherever he goes because they're not going to believe that he's that incapacitated. What was he doing sitting up in the stand?
Well, look, you don't know. I'll put it to this. Listen, I had an incident like this, and I'd always ask the players the question, when it's a knockout game, if I have a guy with a knock, I'll always say to him, look, physio was saying there's, and I'll ask the physio, what's the percentages? The closest you can give me on percentages. And I had this with a guy in Tinner 2 different guys in the last 2 years. And you're saying, right, he's got to play 95%, he should be fine up to 40 minutes. After 40 minutes, bear in mind, 60-minute game at club, he's saying 50-50 chance he's going to tear it if he stays on for the last 20. And I'll go to the player and say, listen, you tell me. That's what the physio is telling me. Do you want to take a 50% risk of tearing a hamstring? It's a knockout game. You tell me what you want to do. And in both cases, the player have come back and said, nah, I'm willing to take a 50% chance on a hamstring risk. Now, some people might say, geez, Omar, the player welfare. I'll ask the player. And if the player said to me, nah, it's not worth it. Now, if it's not a knockout game, you don't even start him. Now, I would assume the fact that Comer was taken off, they were probably looking at, it's a 95% risk or it's a 99% risk. That's the assumption I would make. And I don't think, without knowing what the medical diagnosis at halftime was, we can really, take any sort of authority on the discussion. I would assume that he was done and he was about to go, or he wouldn't have been taken off. And I'm not sure there's value at that level of football when you've got Tomo Cohan and Rob Finnerty on the bench. I don't know if there's any point in Damien Comer going out minding the corner flag and taking a corner back with him I don't think Mayo have any cornerback that's far ahead of the other ones that you'd be happy to take him out of the game like that. You might go to Chrissy McKaig. If that was Derry, I might say, take Chrissy McKaig out the corner flag there, and someone else will operate on a lesser defender. Yeah. But I don't think the gap in defenders in Mayo is that extreme.
Yeah, but I mean, you had Finnerty come in, Ian Burke come in, Culhan come in, obviously for a shorter period. Three of them did nothing at all. No impact at all from the Galway bench, despite these quality players. In actual fact, Galway were rattled after the goal. They couldn't regain their composure. The difference between Mayo and the rest of the country is Mayo seem to have this resilience. Even after they make these mistakes, they seem to be able to put it behind them, launch back into the next ball. That's probably why they've competed for so long, consistently at the higher table. Galway, we saw yesterday, conceded a goal, they went to pieces. They're flaky, and that's why they're gone.
I think that's a bit harsh.
Composure went.
Well, look, hang on a second. When they conceded that goal, it was level playing into a gale force wind, and they were still back to a point on 69 minutes. So I wouldn't agree with that. I think they got blitzed for, and listen, great score, 7 minutes. It was the opposite of what Dublin did to Mayo, and was it in the 19 semi-final? They scored 2-4 in 10 minutes. Mayo scored 1-2. Then Killian O'Connor comes on and scores an outlandish point with his first play. The old dog for the hard road, and then someone else scored. There was a Dirk who came in and kicked an outlandish point from about 45 yards over, kind of blocking hands. So no, I wouldn't buy into that. I think it was a power at half time, 5 points. It was still a 50-50 game. I think playing into that zonal defense, blanket defense, whatever you want to call it, into that wind when it was well set up. Mayo scored 3 out of 12 into that in the first half. Galway scored 2 out of 10 in the second half, excluding the one in injury time. So I would personally put it more down to technical and personnel. And you've got to give Mayo the credit that they pulled the championship stroke. Rochford is infamous for it. Aidan O'Shea fullback on Donaghy, and I suppose sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work. But yesterday, bringing Kevin McLaughlin in, then a split shift with him and Killian O'Connor. I thought it was brilliant by Mayo's backroom team. As I say, I'll come back to any criticism we've made in Galway. They still hadn't expected to score a 16.4 to 12.2. Yeah. And I think the book stops with that on any analysis we do. Notwithstanding the wind probably is worth 1.5 points to that gap. But I still think ultimately it was one of the. I don't think you could really fault anyone in any major capacity. It was I still maintain 2 of the best 4 teams in the country. When all is said and done, they've expected score of 4.3 points each per 10 phases. That would be my bottom line, no matter what way we look at the game. Mayo shot better than Galway. Mayo scored their goal chance.
Which leads us on in the expected scores, right, to our old friend Shane Walsh.
Yeah, and this is a key point, I suppose, that I didn't want to.
That's not a Kilda Cup jersey you're wearing, is it?
No, I actually threw out a maroon t-shirt first. Just I better not do that. Then I went to pick up a green t-shirt and just a yellow t-shirt. That's actually the truth, as I was rushing after our 1:15 deadline you gave me. No, that's not a Kilda Cup. It's all yellow. It's not a yellow belly.
We'll take your word for it.
But look, obviously a lot of talk about Shane Walsh. I mean, Twitter last night, one of the things trending for me was Shane Walsh. I don't know how Twitter works. Was everyone getting that, or was that just me? Shane Walsh, it reminds me of Tony Cotty. I was an Everton fan as a kid. Tony Cotty signed for Everton in 1988, £2.2 million, biggest signing in history. I think the previous biggest was Trevor Francis for £1 million. Scored a hat-trick on his first game against Newcastle, and everyone expects that every week. It was probably the worst thing ever happened to him. Now, he did only score 11 goals in the next 37 games, which isn't 2.2 million. The Arsenal fans used to saying Merson is better than Cotty. We all agree because they missed out when Cotty got Merson. I think Merson scored 20 and they won the league. I think Shane Walsh, had an outlandish game last year in the All-Ireland final. Shane typically had 1 in 3 outlandish games, but to expect that level of consistency from any player is impossible. Probably, I don't have the stats here because I'm doing whole team. I think Shane has probably shot more wides than has missed more than he scored this year with Galway, which wouldn't be his form either, in fairness. Is he tired? Is that just the laws of probability have swung the wrong way? But a point I did make And again, I say this, give the proviso that lads are saying, your man there, I was involved with Galway in 18, so I've skinned the game. I still think the Galway were blessed to be as close to Kerry as they were last year. The expected score on that game was 21 points to 12. Shane Walsh kicked, I think, 6 points with expected score of 2.3. Yeah. Galway on the whole kicked an outlandish game. At the point, and I thought, I was beginning to think this could be the year. And again, I say this as somebody who was involved as the head analyst for Galway in 18. I still don't think Galway did as much last year to get to the Ireland final as they did in 18 to get to the semi-final. And I think 1 in 20 performance by Shane Walsh to kick the points he kicked last year maybe made it look like Galway were closer to Kerry than they were. They didn't play a top 4 team, ELO rankings, to get to the Ireland final. And I just think the expectation that Shane Walsh would come out and do this every day was never realistic, but probably by his own standards hasn't had the year he would have hoped to have had. Sorry, the inter-county year. He's an All-Ireland club medal in his back pocket. But yeah, he'll be disappointed probably with the shoot.
Yeah, 100%. And listen, like, I know the great Patrick Regan and all the posse down in Ballahadreen are banging down the door. They want to know, what does the professor think of next week? Will Mayo beat Dublin? Give them a straight answer.
Again, I'll run the figures. As you say, you just don't know. I put up charts on Twitter there the other day about games between top 10, top 11 teams. Dublin, there's only a sample size of 2 games. And one of those I had to get Kildare, who weren't the top 10 certainly when I started doing those figures. So Dublin's figures are very mediocre. We don't know. I still think when all is said and done, when you're looking at A, B, C, and D, no team has been outlandish. Everyone's been beaten by someone we expect lower down the pecking order. But I still think the team who bizarrely, are sitting in the long grass are Dublin. We'll see. I need to sit down. No matter what I come up with, it's got to be hard to say, because I think Dublin have been cantering along up to now. If your life was on the line, you'd still have to back Dublin. But look, who's to say?
Well, I know one thing for sure is the Hootspa down west is still riding fairly high. Some tulip even went out and wrote a book called Mayo for Sam. So,
would you believe, Conor? Maybe it's the universe conspiring. I think that actually, with my North County Dublin reception, I think the cover of that actually blurred, as though we have we have a producer with a PhD to blur it out. We'll see if that comes out in the recording. Yes, you did indeed write Mayo for Sam.
Absolutely. And everyone who buys a copy gets entered into a draw for a Renault Clio courtesy of Ryan Tuberty. So, but listen, we're really pretty much locked and loaded heading into the weekend. Our plan, I think, we've dissected an awful lot there tonight. There'll probably be a big reaction on those charts around the blanket defense, a new feature. Pretty incredible the way that software is tuning out those numbers on those scoring stats. Pretty extraordinary, really. So look, we're going to do a preview show just towards the end of the week. I think Thursday we'll probably get it out there. As you say, you're going to run the numbers and work the Oracle and come back with the Alchemist Stone. And
yeah, all going well. And I suppose before we go, and I didn't want to leave this out because it is, when we're talking about Mayo and Dublin, I'd always talk about the little details that Stephen Cluxton brings. And I made the point, and I want to make the point, actually, Conor Gleeson had a superb game. I was critical of him not hitting short clips in some of the games throughout the year. Really had a superb game. But if Mayo made 1 error, I think in the second half, they just went into banging kickouts long. They lost 3 in a row, I think, which allowed Galway back into the game. But I think we've got to give credit. Again, everyone sees the great saves, everyone sees the great kicks, or the YouTube kicks, I should say. But we see Colin Repair, he's after banging 3 in a row long. There's a point in it, 69 minutes. And again, looking forward to Dublin, Mayo. This has got to be the key. And again, I don't want to be disparaging to anybody, but the fact that Stephen Cluxton didn't get All-Stars early every year, because this is what Cluxton did. And now Mayo have a keeper who, I thought maybe not so much Reap's fault, but Mayo's fault. Didn't give them the options, banged a few long. Galway kept getting hands on ball. 69.5 minutes, point of the game. There's no option on there. But you can see him, he's calling, he's calm, no panic, head and the shoulders, years beyond his age. And what have we got? Look at that. Like, even there, you're asking, where's he actually clipping that to? And it's a tiny gap. Mayo get hands on ball. And from there, to be fair to Mayo, they game managed brilliantly. So that's got to be a key feature with Mayo Dublin. Those hands on ball kickouts. Believe it or not, Mayo won more than they lost the last time they played in championship football, which is the first. So that'll be key. We'll see. But I think I had to put that in and give Reap his dues on that savage kick out that probably was the game winner in the end.
Brilliant. Well, look, I mean, you know, we're now into the quarterfinals. It's going to be pretty extraordinary from here on in. It's non-stop action, overlapping. Funny, a pal of mine was only saying he's gone on holidays for 2 weeks. The schools are off now on Friday. By the time he comes back, the only games left will be the 2 All-Ireland finals. So that is the intensity. This thing is just going to accelerate into oblivion. This should really be spread out. Look, we're not going to get into GA politics now, but it's absolute madness. Lumping in, particularly 3 Northern teams coming down the same weekend. It's crazy. I mean, you have 4 press days. Having the draw at 8 o'clock this morning on RTE means today is gone. You've only 4 media days to squeeze in like 4 quarterfinals of the weekend, right? Absolute madness. Complete chaos. Serves nobody and doesn't promote the game in any way, shape, or form because there's just too much going on at one time. No one knows what the hell is going on.
Well, we won't go into that, but I would say, with all that with the caveat from an inter-county point of view, which is less than 2% of the players in the country, you try and ask a Wexford or Carlow County Board how they're going to fit in a football and hurling championship before the Leinster preliminary rounds in October, and they might tell you something different, because I'm still not sure. We might need that lad who turned water into wine to fix all those.
Correct. Right. It's the same way you used to fit 4 elephants into a mini, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. But listen, on that note, before we get committed to the local asylum, right, we're going to wrap up there, folks. Appreciate you joining us. We keep our lit, and hopefully the boys in Ballahadream will get their answer. All the best.